Zepto is a fast-growing Indian startup which is into online grocery delivery and quick commerce. It's a very good company to work for. And today in this video we are going to discuss about the SDE-2 Frontend interview experience for the company Zepto. So basically, see, SDE-2 Frontend role is basically not a very junior role or a senior role. It's a mid-level role. It is basically if you have an experience of more than 2 years, so you can apply for a SDE-2 Frontend role in Zepto. Okay, so we will discuss in this video what are the different interview rounds that happens for Zepto and what kind of questions are being asked, and we will also see how you can prepare for your Zepto interview. Now, Zepto gives a salary of around 30 to 40 LPA for SDE-2 Frontend role, which is a very good salary. It's a very good salary for a software engineer in India. And now, from this 30 to 40 LPA, the base salary is around 28 to 30 LPA, 32 LPA, depends on your negotiation skills and your work experience. And apart from that, it also offers a joining bonus and ESOPs. It all depends on your negotiation skills. But the salary is ranges from 30 to 40 LPA. That's the general salary which they offer. Now, let us move to the interview question. So I was going through a Medium article, right? It is available on Medium. I'll share the link also with you. So this was the interview experience shared by a person, Vinay. And thank you so much. All credits to Vinay for this article. And he has also mentioned all the rounds and all the questions which were asked in the interview. Okay, so let's go through one by one, and I will also tell you where you can prepare that, and I will give you my opinion, and I will give you my expert advice over what you should prepare and how you should prepare all these concepts so that you don't do a big major blunder in your front-end interviews, right? So now, first of all, let me tell you, Zepto goes through, if you are going through a SDE-2 round, so Zepto has 3 rounds of interview. The first round is JavaScript round, the second round is machine coding, and the third round is hiring manager. Let me tell you that this is a very lean interview process. Generally in other startups and in other companies in India, right? Generally for an SDE-2 role, you'll have to go through 4 or 5 rounds of interview, but Zepto has made the process a little lean and only has 3 rounds. The first one is JavaScript round, the second one is machine coding, and the third hiring manager. Okay, let's discuss all these rounds one by one. So the first round is JavaScript round. The questions which were asked to this candidate were, the first one, event loop. Now, let me tell you, my dear friends, event loop is a very, 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 very important concept, and you should definitely know. If you are a front-end developer and you are planning to give interviews, trust me, in almost every interview, event loop and promises will be asked. Okay, so both of these topics, event loop plus promises, you will have, it's a must have, right? You should know it through in and out, right? I have already made videos on promises as well as event loop. Go watch them. They are sufficient for you to gather the knowledge of event loop. But make sure you understand the asynchronous behavior of JavaScript when you are talking about event loop. And I have covered everything which is available in Namaste JavaScript for free on YouTube. You can watch that video. You will understand event loop from scratch. It's very good, right? So always study event loop. Now the interviewer, now let me also tell you that, okay, this question will not be very straightforward. If you are giving an interview for a senior role, then this question will not be direct, like what is an event loop or something, but there could be some, tricky question, right, which has an answer that might be event loop, right? Basically, a tricky interview question which has an underlying concept of event loop which is running over there, right? So that's why, generally, that's how the interviewers trick you by those questions. I have covered those questions on my video also, right, on my YouTube channel. So go watch that video and you will see the tricky questions also over there in that video. And if you are able to solve that, right? If you know about microtask queue, if you know about callback queue, everything I have covered. So if you know about call stack, memory heap, everything, how JavaScript code runs, then you don't have to worry about this topic. Okay, so that is all you have to study. Now comes the promises and async await. So promises, interviewer can trick you again with a lot of like random questions around promises, but you should always know what are different type of promise callback and promise functions or promise APIs. Okay, so just like you can do promise.race, promise.all, promise.settle, and all that thing, right? So you should know about all these things. And then you should also know about, if you are preparing for promises, that there is a concept known as promise chaining. So can you change those promises? What will happen? How the promises are executed? Why promises came into picture first of all? You should also know about callback hell. So before learning promises, you should know about callback hell also. So write down all these concepts. I am telling you from my experience, trust me, I have taken a lot of interviews for front-end role in my past, all the companies, and even today I take a lot of front-end interviews, and this is a very favorite question, not just for me, but also for a lot of interviewers. Okay, so always prepare promises thoroughly. Async await is kind of like a syntactical sugar for on promises, right? But again, people can, interviewers can trick you anytime, right, with these concepts. So you can just study that. Now, hoisting, right? So hoisting is again a very important concept of JavaScript. Whenever you are giving a JavaScript round, always be prepared for hoisting, closures, prototype and prototypal inheritance, this keyword, right? These are the very core concepts of JavaScript you should know. And I have covered all of this in Namaste JavaScript also. Go through those videos and you will be prepared for all these questions. Trust me. And hoisting is a tricky concept. If you will go search on internet for hoisting, you might fall into like random definitions which are not correct. So always make sure that you know the proper definition of hoisting. Now closures, again a very tricky concept, right? If you don't understand closures, then interviewer can also give you output questions. So note it down. When you are preparing closures, you should always prepare for some output questions also. Google it. If you want, I can make a video properly on closure interview questions. Write it down in comments. I will, if I get a lot of likes on those comments, then I will make a separate video for just output questions of closures, right? Because interviewers trick you, right, with output questions of closure plus promises. Okay, these two concepts are very important when it comes to output questions, and finding the bug in the, interviewers can give you a code and then they can ask you to debug. So always remember, you have to do that. Now, prototype and prototypal inheritance, again I have covered that in one of the videos. Please study that. There are no random, if the questions are being asked in prototypal inheritance or something, these are generally theory questions. Interviewer won't ask you to write code or something. Okay, so don't worry about that topic. This keyword, right, this can be tricky. Again, there can be a lot of interview questions and coding questions also around this. This behaves very differently in case of normal functions and arrow functions. Always remember that. Write it down in your notebook. Whenever I am telling you, right, write all these things down, because I know I have seen a lot of interviewers asking questions. I prepare students for interviews, and I every day see a lot of interview questions. So I know how interviewers can trick you in these concepts. Okay, so in this keyword, generally always remember that if you are using this keyword with normal functions and if you are using with arrow functions, right, so it can be different. Now this keyword can behave very different in different scenarios, so always prepare for that as well. Now another thing is flattening object, right? This is again a very, very amazing question, right? It's a very traditional question. It's not a very new question, right? But again, you should be familiar and fluent with writing code. And generally you should know a concept of recursion when you are doing this. If you know a little bit of how recursion works, it will help you while solving this question. Okay, by the way, I'll share you the link of this article. You can go through that, or you can also take down notes for better clarity. So this was the JavaScript round. if I have to ask and if I have to, tell you my opinion about this round was very, very easy. This round can be very, very easy as well as very, very tough, right? It all depends on your preparation. See, event loop in itself is a very big concept. So interviewer can trick you and ask you follow-up questions again and again, and can take you to internal concepts of JavaScript, right? What is callback? How does the code is executed? What is a call stack? How do JavaScript code is executed? And why do, how can you do asynchronous task in JavaScript? So it can go in random directions, this round of interview. But yes, if you are prepared well, then it's a very easy round of interview. See, if you are preparing for a front-end interview, I assume that you are preparing for all these concepts already. And if I was going through this article and I did not see any, tricky question, right? Very tricky question over here. Nothing that you would not have been prepared for, right? All these questions, if you are preparing for front-end interviews, these are the must-have questions in the interview, right? So please prepare like that. Now, the second round was the machine coding round. The main aim of the first round is to test your JavaScript knowledge. The second round, right, of this interview is machine coding round, and it was done in React, in Code Sandbox. Okay. So one advice from my side is always be familiar with Code Sandbox, because these days in front-end interviews, in machine coding round, interviewer ask you to code in a Code Sandbox, right? So Code Sandbox, if you don't know about it, Code Sandbox is an online website, right? You can just go over here, codesandbox.io, and you can practice over here. So if you will practice before your interview, then you will be familiar with the environment. Okay, you can just register over here and choose React, and you can just start a project and you can just code along, right? So just get familiar with the platform if you aren't. But let me tell you, this is a very famous platform, and a lot of interviewer will ask you to code in this platform. Okay, so always be prepared ahead. Don't panic at the last moment, but prepare over here, right? Because this is exactly like, see, the code will be very same, but it's not like your normal IDE that you always work on, right? It's a little different tool. So if you are already familiar with it, then it will make your life easy when you are in an interview in a pressure situation. Now, the question over here was to develop a form-based UI, right? Basically, it's like a form. Now, the form is not a very simple form, but the form included 3 tabs, right? Basically, there are 3 tabs: profile, interest, and settings. And all these tabs have certain input boxes, right? Input boxes can be normal input box, text input box. There can be numeric input boxes. There can be check boxes. There can be different type of, multi-select and all that stuff, right? Into the form, just like we have a normal form. But the tricky part is you have 3 tabs over there and you have to manage those tabs, right? If you click on one, the next and the next, that's how the form works. And then you had to incorporate drop downs, radio buttons, checkboxes, and implement validations over there. You have to, this is a tricky thing. You have to persist data across tabs. Now, machine coding round can be tricky, and, it can be extendable, right? Interviewers can keep asking you, keep grilling you on the code you write, and then keep giving you new features to add in your product. Okay, so that's how the machine coding round generally are. So the interviewer can start with asking you to build a normal form, and then ask you to build a tab kind of a form, and then later on give you more features like adding validations. Then they can also ask that, suppose if you are moving from one tab to another tab, suppose if you open the same website on another tab, so the data should stay over here, right? How would you manage that? So for that, you should have proper knowledge of front end, right? You should know exactly how browsers work. For that, right, to persist data across tabs, right, what comes to your mind? Can you answer me? Write it down in the comment. Pause the video over here. If you got the answer that how will you persist data across the tabs, write it down in the comment. Pause over here. I will read your comments and then come back and watch the video from here. right? But let me tell you the answer. Mostly whenever you have to persist data across different tabs, you can use local storage, right? Local storage is same across different tabs, right? Suppose if you just open a website and you have data in your local storage, you can just prefetch it from the local storage if it's there, right? So you can use local storage for that. Adding validations is mandatory, and then there should be a submit button that submitted the entire form only on the last tab. So basically, see, did you see that interviewer has asked you to, has checked a lot of things, like lot of concept while giving you this question. So see, I am just telling you the idea behind asking this question. There can be a different question, but the perspective of interviewer is what I am telling you. See, interviewers has already checked whether you can, put in conditions in your form or not, right? Because you'll have to put a condition, right? The submit button can only be submitted on the last tab. So there is a conditional thing that interviewer has checked. Now the interviewer has also checked whether you know about the storage or not, right? Local storage or not, right? Because you will be using local storage over here. Now the interviewer can also ask you questions around why you are using local storage, why not cookies, why not session storage, right? You should know the difference between all of it. Machine coding round is not just about writing code and just making the UI. No. Interviewer can grill you on all of these topics, right? That if you talk about local storage, they can ask you about other types of storage also. So be prepared for that, right? If you are prepared enough, right, it would be very easy for you to answer all these questions in the interview. Now, validations. Validations can be of different types, right? Some validations are like, suppose if you're typing in a form and then suppose you mistakenly type something which is off, right? So you should show the validation right on that field as in when you are changing the field. That's one type of validation. Other validations can be when you are clicking on submit and then suddenly that red thing pops up, right? So always whenever the interviewer is giving you machine coding round of questions, right, always ask clarifying questions from the interview. Make sure what interview is expecting. When you are persisting data across tabs, so always tell the interviewer that I am following this approach. I am just planning to use local storage. And this is a very trick question that you can ask. If you will say to the interviewer, let's use local storage for this. So the interviewer, if you are correct at that point, interviewer will say, yes, that's a good idea. Let's use it. But if the interviewer is skeptical, oh, are you sure you want to use local storage? If the interviewer says like this, that means there is something else interviewer is expecting. So always try to clarify with the interviewer and have a two-way conversation when you are doing your machine coding round of interview, because there can be gaps in what you code and then what the interviewer is expecting, and that is why generally people fail in machine coding round. Hope everything is making sense. I am giving you, my advice just on the basis of what I have seen candidates doing. And I have also seen a lot of, I have given a lot of interviews and I have taken a lot of interviews also. Okay. So all this is coming, whatever I am saying, from my experience, what I have seen in the industry happening. Cool. So, the other major thing, the other major tricky thing about machine coding round of interview is time limit. Generally what happens is, if you are not fluent in writing code, if you take a lot of time in debugging, then most probably what will happen is you will not be able to complete this question in 1 hour. So, if you want, I can make a separate YouTube video and I can code the same question right in front of you, and I can show you how you would have coded in interviews. Okay, so I can make that, right? Write it down in comments if you need that video from me. I can make another video, like the next video can be this also, right? I can just make it and show it to you how you would approach this problem in the interview. But let me tell you, if you don't write the code fluently, if you don't debug your code fast, then sometimes you will run out of time and you will not be able to complete the question, and that is why you can fail the interview. So always remember that speed is very important in machine coding round, and the speed will only come through practice. So always practice on code sandbox, because this is what you would probably be using when you are giving a front end interview. Okay, so this is the thing. Now the interviewer also asked a little bit about how can you build an extended or modifying it, right? How can you basically code improvements. So generally once you write the code, then the interviewer can ask you whether this code is scalable, this code is testable, this code is modular, this code is readable. So all these things, be prepared for these questions. These are the common questions which will be asked in your machine coding round irrespective of everything, right? So make sure that whenever you are writing code, you are writing maintainable code, readable code, scalable code, modular code. you know uh, Trust me, right? When I was teaching my students in Namaste React, all the Namaste React students, right, who would be watching this video would already know what I'm talking about, because I have focused a lot upon how to write modular code, readable code, scalable code. That's a very important skill for a front-end developer. Okay, so always try to build your components in that fashion so that the interviewer does not grill you a lot, right? If you are writing the poor quality code, right, if you don't make proper components of your code, if you're not passing the props properly through the through the application, you are not managing the state properly, then the interviewer can give you negative marks also. Those can be a very big red flag, and I am considering that you are an SDE-2, then you cannot make a blunder in all these things, right? The expectations are high. Suppose if the same question was given to a SDE-1, then the expectations are a little low, right? But if you are an SDE-2, then you are expected to be very fluent at code. You should know your state management properly. You should also be ready. The interviewer can also ask you to write test cases for your code. Also be ready. If the interviewer asks you, can you write test cases for this code? So you should be able to write test cases for this code also. Okay. So these are the tips which I wanted to give you for the machine coding round. Overall, if you ask my opinion, this is a very really good machine coding round of interview, right? Interview question. I would give it 10 on 10, right? Because this question has a mix of a lot of things and it really tests a good front-end engineer, right? If you are a good front-end engineer, then in 1 hour you would be able to properly complete this code, right? Try it out yourself, right? You can just put a timer in your in your mobile phone or something, and then code it along on a code sandbox and see if you can make it in 1 hour or not, right? Along with test cases, and try to code it yourself and see how much time you are taking. If it's taking a lot of time for you, and when you are setting the timer, always set the timer for 35 minutes, because see, in an interview of 1 hour, generally you don't get full 1 hour, right? Most of the 5-10 minutes goes in introduction, then 5-10 minutes goes into discussion and all. So basically you probably get 35-40 minutes only for coding. So always set your timer whenever you are practicing for machine coding round. Always set your timer for 40 minutes or 35 minutes, and then code in a timed environment. That's a very different style of coding. Okay, so please practice it. But this is a very good question. I would give it 10 on 10, and very good question asked by the interviewer. Whosoever was the interviewer, good job, right, for asking this question, because it tests a lot of things, right? So that is why. Now, I was surprised to see, but there were only 2 technical rounds. If you clear these 2 rounds, then you move on to the final round, which is the hiring manager round. Now, generally in a lot of companies, I'm not sure about Zepto, but in a lot of companies, hiring manager round, in hiring manager generally also tests your system design skills, right? Sometimes they can ask you a system design question or something, because see, I am surprised also, in a lot of companies, even for SD2 nowadays, they have started asking system design questions, right? If you go for an interview in Microsoft or Uber, right, all these companies ask you a system design round. That's a must have round, right? And generally they have 4 or 5 rounds of interview. Okay, so generally if you are an SDE-2, always prepared for system design also. But over here in Zepto, I don't see any system design round, and neither do I see any question of system design generally from the hiring manager. Okay, but yes, generally the hiring manager over here was asking the project description, right? Explain the projects that you should always know, right? You should know what you have written in your resume. You should know how to express your work in front of the manager, what you have actually done, what was your ownership, how did you manage to deal, right, with all this, deal with the project, how did you start the project, what was your role in it, all those questions you should be prepared for. Okay, and then one important question, always prepare. See, whenever you have a resume and you have written a project over there, so one important question can be, what was the most challenging part in that project? Okay, always be prepared beforehand, because I have asked this to a lot of people, right? That suppose if you are working as a front-end engineer in some company and you have built some project. So I generally ask, right? It's a very casual question and it's a very common question also, that what is the most challenging thing you have done in this project? Okay. And then I have seen 99% of the times people go blank. And then they, oh, okay, challenging thing. And okay, Akshay, and they get stuck, right? So this is the scenario that happens, and not 99% of the time, 90% of the time, this is the same thing happens, and then they are stuck. They don't know about it. So I would say that always be prepared for this question. If you don't have it, right? If you don't have any challenging thing, then you should do something challenging so that you can at least speak in front of the interviewer, right? Because this can be a question, and then going blank at that point doesn't look good, at least for a senior engineer or a SD2, right? So you should always have something to say about, right, challenging things you have done. Okay. Now the interviewer has also asked for some design patterns, right? Singleton, factory, observer patterns, right? These are the questions, right? You can prepare about that. I don't know why hiring manager is asking for all these questions, but again, right, they can ask you. Code organization. Okay, so now code organization, performance optimization. So basically, if you will see, right, so hiring manager has asked some of the portions of system design over here, not exactly a system design question as per se, right? See, in a typical system design round, the interviewer will ask you like, okay, design a Google Doc, or design Ola Uber kind of an application, or design a Swiggy kind of an application, food ordering app or something like that. So here, hiring manager over here did not ask proper system design question, but he has touched upon few core concepts that a senior front-end engineer should know, right? Just like performance optimization. This performance optimization is a very big thing. It's a system design thing in front end, but there can be a lot of type of performance optimization that you can do in your app. And if the hiring manager is smart enough, right? If he is a techie, then he can grill you in that also, right? How can you make your website load fast? How can you improve the render time? How can you improve the SEO? How can you improve the page load time? And a lot of things can come under performance optimization, code optimization, right? Code organization and optimization. Basically, how would you improve the performance? How would you caching strategy and deployment? So many things can come right into performance of an application. Okay, so the performance is a very critical part of any front-end application, right? And you should really know in and out of performance. Okay, so always be prepared for that. Very good question over here, right? Again, right, the best practices of organizing code. How would you basically build large scale application? But most of these questions are generally theory. But the interviewer can grill you a lot, right, in these things. At least in performance optimization, they can grill you a lot. I'm not sure about, design patterns are very straightforward, right? You can just explain singleton, what is singleton, factory, observer, right? These are very straightforward, right? These are straightforward questions. These you should prepare always, right? Mostly hiring manager will ask you these questions, okay? Your project walkthrough and what are the challenging things you have done in your projects. These things you should be prepared beforehand. Design patterns are straightforward. Code organization and also is straightforward. Performance optimization is a topic where interviewer can really grill you, right? And then collaboration. Okay, so see, for SD1, collaboration is not that important, right? It is important, but then for SD2 and senior roles, collaboration is a very important thing. And hiring manager is always looking whether you are a good collaborator or not. Can you work in team? The basic question is, the hiring manager wants to judge you whether can you work with other people in a team. Can you work with product managers to ask requirements? Can you work with other team members? Can you guide your juniors? Can you design some application? So collaboration is a very important, part of a developer, because every day you will have to collaborate with your product manager, with designers, with your juniors, with your peers, with other teams and all that stuff. So your collaboration skills should be reflected, right, in your resume or in your conversations when you are doing with your hiring manager. When you are discussing with hiring manager, make sure you mention these things, that I collaborate with product managers, I collaborate with designers, I collaborate with other team members, senior engineers, architect, backend engineers, because front end is a very, front part of an application. So you have to deal with the product managers directly, designers directly, backend team directly, and then other people in your team. So collaboration is a very important skill. So whatever you are speaking should reflect that you are a good collaborator and you can work excellently in a team if given an opportunity. Okay, so hiring manager will be impressed if he sees your active participation in a team, right? Or if you can explain it to them. So these were the 3 rounds. Hiring manager did not ask a lot of tough questions over here. I think the round was very easy, right, over here, right? Again, it depends on how much they would have grilled for performance. But again, if you know performance optimization techniques, then you don't have to worry about. Overall, I found this round, as I am reading this, right, I found this round to be really easy, right? This round was tricky. If you are not practiced enough, then you can get stuck in this round. JavaScript round was also a little easy, right, if you ask me, because these are nothing new, right? Nothing. I do not see any questions which is like out of the box, right, which has been asked in this interview. Okay, so overall, I see it's a decent interview challenge, but it's not a very hard interview challenge, because I have seen much harder interviews than this interview experience that I see. Okay, now the writer over here, right, has also shared some key takeaways, right? So he is asking that, okay, you should master the fundamentals, your JavaScript should be strong, which is really very important. SDE-2 Frontend, if your JavaScript is not good and if you are just relying on React for your interviews, it's not gonna happen. You will not be getting a good package, you will not be a good engineer if you don't know JavaScript really well. Okay, yes, as an SD2, I agree with this point. You should think about the scalability really well. These can be the questions which can be asked to senior engineers as well as SD2. So always be ready, right? And be ready to discuss the real world experience, right? Being able to explain your past projects. Yes. So this is a must have thing. Irrespective of your interview preparation, you should definitely know what you are doing in your projects. What are the challenging things you have done? Because almost anyone can ask you these questions, right? So it's very important. And collaboration is critical. Yes, I agree to this point. Collaboration is critical. Backend engineers, designers, PM, product managers, and your teammates. So collaboration is very important. Okay. So this was the interview round, right? Now, if you want any more, if you have any doubts regarding this interview process, then you can let me know in the comments. And also let me know if you want an explanation or a coding sample for the machine coding round of interview. Comment it down wherever you feel that, okay, if this was the interview, and self-judge yourself. Suppose if you were giving this interview round, how prepared you were, right? How prepared were you? Have you, is there anything over here in these topic mentioned that you don't know? Write it down in the comments. I really want to know. Also, let me know any topics if you want to make videos on, right? I will make videos on those topics, and trust me, if you would have watched Namaste JavaScript, if you are a Namaste JavaScript student, if you are a Namaste React student, then this interview is a piece of cake for you, isn't it? Right? You would have got to know. The people who have watched Namaste JavaScript, the people who have watched Namaste React, this is a very piece of cake for you. And people who have got front-end system design also, right? Then nobody can like beat you over there, right? So it's very easy. If you feel that, okay, you want any explanation about any concept or topic or any other interview question, not just from these questions, but any other interview questions also which you might have faced in your interviews, please comment it down and I would love to make videos on it. And if you are liking this series, right, I will be coming up with more interview experiences of Indian companies, right? If you like this series, then do give a like on this video, right? Please like this video, right? Hit that like button, because I have seen a lot of you just watch the videos but you never like the videos. Just hit that like button. It gives me a lot of motivation to make more videos. Okay, and thank you so much for watching. Suggest me more topics in the in the comments, and I would love to make more videos regularly on JavaScript and on front end and on a lot of other things, right? So please suggest me those topics, and thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one very soon. Bye bye.